mean, animals are very, very spiritually advanced, relationshiply advanced beings, and my dogs are definitely much more in touch with the ground than I am. So, it makes sense.
I can see a girl right at the back.
Hand up, middle of the row, awkward to get to.
You could probably yell at each other.
Hello, yeah, thanks. I really liked the film, and one of the things I really loved was your use of music, but also of the silence. And you mentioned earlier you did music videos and things like that, and I was just wondering how you approached it and whether that was influenced by you doing music videos and things like that.
Well, before I did music videos, music was a huge, important thing for me in defining myself and figuring out the world, and I use music all the time to write or whatever. And the music in the film is really part of the portrait of my parents. My dad was always interested in classical music and trying to teach me about it. So we did all these Bach cello suites in the French horn, which weirdly Ewan played. It was one of the many serendipitous moments on the set. And then my mom was really into The Sting, the movie and the soundtrack, and she played The Sting all the time. And whenever I hear The Sting, it's like, Mom, So I didn't want to just do Scott Joplin, who did that music, but I found out about Jelly Roll Morton and all that sort of jazz stuff, and sort of went from there and got Hoagie Carmichael because my mom just adored Bogart, and I conflate Bogart and Carmichael because they're both into Have and Have Not, and luckily all that music is cheap. It's tremendously cheap. It's strange. So, and I loved having music that wasn't contemporary and that wasn't really putting it in any time, any current sort of moment.
Although there was the scratching session. DJ
But that was in 1978. But yes,
discovering
hip-hop. Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Down the front on the right here.
Yeah, I really, really loved it. I thought both of you, congratulations you, and I thought your performance was brilliant.
Thank you.
Just a question on the structure of the film, I guess. As the writer-director, how much of that was worked out, and how much in the edit did you, I guess, play around with time?
It was written like that. I mean, there's things that changed, but it was written like that. And I love changing, and I love changing when we're on the set. I love when anybody has an idea, or when something pops out, like Ewan talking as Freud to the lady, or I'm always encouraging that. I want to keep it alive. I don't want to know everything. So I definitely did change things and rewrote some things, and we reshot a couple of things. But the basic feeling of it was written like that. And a lot of the transitions are where I spent the most time as a writer, just trying to figure out how to go back and forth.
We shot it in an interesting way in that we shot the two sides of the story separately. So we shot the story with Christopher first, and we rehearsed for a week with Christopher, or 5 days, and then we shot that film in about 2.5 weeks. And then we stopped and we rehearsed with Melanie for a week, and we shot the second part of the movie in 2.5 weeks.
And each part in order,
they are more or less in sequence. So because in the second part of the story, in the love story, Oliver's remembering back to his life with his father, and so I was literally able to do that because we shot it all, and so I was able to go back to those scenes and those moments for real, really, which was really a luxury. I've always thought that maybe shooting in sequence was a little bit of a gimmick or something, but I realised that it was really helpful in something like this. Really, really, really helpful to start at the beginning of the story and work your way to the end, especially when the end of the first story is so painful and upsetting. It really, the fact that we were coming to the end of that anyway, and working with Christopher was such a delight. The fact that we were coming to the end of that little chapter of my life and our lives together, then that was really, really sad anyway. So yeah. It all worked in our favour, really.
That last day, Christopher's pretty much in that bed in the living room all day, and Christopher's quite handsome and winning. And so I remember coming around the corner one day, we're shooting, Christopher's just kind of ensconced in the bed like a king all day long. And one day I turn around the corner and there's my assistant, Jennifer, all the pretty girls on set are all around the bed sort of petting him in different ways. Christopher's leaving. And there he is, just yes, this is how it is. I do really believe that things accrue, not just with you, definitely with you guys, and that's the main point, for the actors to really develop their own strange, like, from my perspective, mysterious thing together between them. But it also happens with the crew, you know. And when Christopher died, Ewan definitely had a very real primal reaction, but then the crew did too. Like, the whole crew was just like a wreck. Not that that's, you know, something fun to plot, but it was strangely effective.
Yeah, well, it's dead on, isn't it? It meant that we, you know, people are thinking about the story, but it makes people think about themselves and their loved ones who have passed or not passed, or it's a very moving moment.
Was that quite quick to do an entire film in 5 weeks?
Yeah, but it's so good to do it that way. This one I'm on at the moment, we've been shooting for, by the time we finish, over 5 months.
Yeah.
And it's almost impossible to get any kind of, maintain any level of kind of emotional depth or even any emotional connection to the work after that length of time. And when it's chopped up so much and it becomes also kind of technical and meaningless. And on a film like this, you're exploring these scenes, and you're really exploring them as closely as you can be to the person you're playing. I think maybe in this film than any other I've made, because that's it. This is it. And Mike sets the set in such a beautiful way that you're free to play. And we had a brilliant DP, Casper, who shot the two halves of the story in quite different ways. The first part of the story with the father's the camera was always mainly on the dolly, on the track, or if it moved quite steadily and slowly. And so you have a sort of mood for the first story, and the second story with Melanie is just all handheld, because it's a much more, he's falling in love, it's a more frenetic kind of experience. And you know, in that second part of the story with Melanie, I never saw a mark on the ground, or we never had to, you know, he lit in such a way that, or didn't light at all in such a way that we had complete freedom to really play wherever we wanted in the room. And so the scenes in the, for instance, in the Biltmore Hotel with her hotel suite, you know, we just had the freedom to move around wherever we wanted to go. And although we did kind of block it roughly,
yeah,
we still could.
But you guys would block it, and we would never be like, you have to end up over there by the column, by the light. So maybe because we hardly use any lights, so it'd be a little bit like, go by the windows, please. You know, and that would be about it. And I remember too, Christopher kind of liked some constraints and wanted to, you know the ship he was on. So I feel like sometimes we put some marks down, or, you know, we'll kind of light it a little bit more traditionally, partly because the memory part of the film did want to be more designed and more conscious and more limited in a way. Couldn't look around like you can when you're handheld. But also I think naturally it just kind of felt good for Christopher to be like, I go here and I go there and I do that. And that's how he finds his freedom, I think, and finds, you know, his comfort to, like, where his energy really starts going. And that's what you have to, well, at least for me, it's the key thing to figure out, like, what's each actor's sort of hidden recipe? What's the thing that makes them comfortable and not think and just keep going? And for Christopher, it was having some rules, you know, or having some points.
More questions? Just there, too easy.
I was just wondering, how did you find it having to separate the two roles as a writer-director? And then I was also just wondering, Ewan, from your experience and perspective as an actor, what the most helpful and least productive approach a director can take towards you is.
All that yelling at it didn't seem to work so good. Screaming and pounding on your chest.
When you were directing from your trailer, on the monitor, the microphone, faster. That wasn't so helpful. Shall I start?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to put your finger on what makes a great director, because, you know, I've worked with many directors who I would consider to be great directors, but none of them are remotely alike in their style. And I think it's much more about a connection between people and their character. You know, it's very much about who they are, because it's about taste really. At the end of the day, it's directing. You ask people are asking you a great deal of questions all the time, and you're answering them really with your instinct and your taste, I think. And so very much, my favourite relationships and my best experiences with directors have been with, it's to do with their character more than their style. Polanski I love working with a lot, but he'll tell you how to say lines, and he'll act it out for you, which is a real no-no, you know. Like page one, don't tell the actor how to say it, and don't do it for him. And at the very end of the shoot, like after 3.5, 4 months of working with him, I said, Roman, please don't act it for me, because when you do it, I can only kind of copy you. And he went, oh, okay. And after, it'd take me 3 months to pluck up the courage to ask him. But he's a brilliant director nonetheless, and what he's trying to, his direction is unbelievably good.
You reformed Roman Polanski, that's amazing.
No, I certainly didn't. He didn't stop doing it anyway the next day. But so it's very difficult to say, do this or don't do that. It's much more about how much care the director's taking with you as actors, and how, you must, to do your best work, you must feel that you're being creatively utilized. You must feel like you're being used in a creative way. And then you flourish because you feel satisfied and you feel like you're exercising your creativity. When you know that you're just making somebody's storyboards work, so they've got an idea of exactly what they want you to do beforehand, and there's no exploration and there's no conversation in your work creatively, then that's really, really difficult, because you feel like you're not, because we can all do that. I mean, I can, you can do a drawing and I can make that work, but it doesn't make me feel very satisfied. So I think it's a director who does that, a director who enters into a kind of creative conversation with you is the best of all.
And that's, I mean, for me, that's what I really want as a director, as an actor, to like get past what they know and what we planned, and like where there's something really at stake for the actor. There's something very real happening. There's some real engagement. They did whatever trick they needed to do in their head and their body and soul to like make it feel real and not know quite what's going to happen. That's why, especially the pieces between Ewan and Melanie had that so strongly on the set, where everybody just like, what's going to happen now? There was so much electricity and strange, impossible to predict, organic moments happening. That's kind of my favorite stuff. And Christopher provides that, and gets to that in a very different way, but he still makes it happen on the camera.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm going for. And the writer-director question it's weird. I think it takes me so long to write and so long to get a film financed that I'm a writer for years and then a director only for like a little bit. And it'd be neat if I got to do things more back and forth. But I like being on set and being able to say, thank God I don't have to like go ask a writer, but we're going to change everything right now. Or, I don't understand how that works.
As a director, you have to make many sacrifices in terms of your writing and getting that on screen.
I would never think sacrifice. I make many changes in negotiations. That's directing. That's directing. Is this like constant negotiation with reality, and you're always, nothing is like as you thought it was, and that's just the baseline of your experience, and you go from there. She's been trying so hard. I mean, like half of her
Pulled your shoulder out.
body out